In solo leveling, the massive gate swirling above China began to break open, and Jinwoo stared up, thinking that it had finally started. However, Bellion sensed something strange, realizing that he didn't feel any presences coming from the gate. A bit worried, Jinwoo asked Bellion about all the other locations, and Bellion reported that, according to the other shadow soldiers, they all seemed to be the same. This made Jinwoo ponder to himself, realizing that all the gates might be empty, before suddenly acknowledging that it was his mistake. He realized that he had thought they created different gates across the world to divide their army, but in fact, they had probably concentrated all their forces in the gate farthest away from him. Meanwhile, the colossal gate that appeared in Canada swirled with dark aura as Jay Mills, along with the other hunters, proudly stood in front of it. Fully geared, Jay Mills remarked that it was astonishing how everyone was mindlessly relying on Hunter Sung Jinwoo. As news spread that Hunter Sung Jinwoo was heading to China, with Japan and Russia joining him, a plane of hunters departing that day, and the White Acropolis in Japan unrelated to the gates, Jay Mills thought to himself that while everyone relied on Jinwoo, they hadn't faltered. Behind the hunters, civilians shouted and screamed, declaring that they would not give up on Canada, that their hunters would protect both them and the land, and that they would win no matter what demonic beasts came out from that gate. Suddenly, the massive gate forcefully shattered in front of them, signaling the start of the raid. Silence engulfed them as they waited for the demonic creatures to emerge, but confusion spread among the hunters, wondering if Hunter Sung Jinwoo had been bluffing, since no beasts were pouring out of the gate. Suddenly, the silhouette of a man slowly emerged from the gate. As the hunters fixed their gaze on the figure, they muttered in confusion that there was only one of them, while the mysterious man hovered silently above them. Jay Mills stared upward, struggling to comprehend whether the figure was truly human, since it looked like just a person. As the majestic man descended closer to the hunters, his gaze fell upon Jay Mills, asking if he was the king of this place. Jay Mills was shocked as he realized the creature was not a demonic beast at all, but a being capable of speaking the language of humans. A hunter beside Jay Mills remarked that there was nothing to be surprised about, since demonic beasts were capable of making their own gear, using the runic alphabet, and living in a strictly hierarchical society. In other words, they had a level of intelligence similar to that of humans, and they simply did not wish to communicate with them until now. He noted that he wouldn't be surprised if the demonic beasts learned the human language to try to communicate with them. Hearing this, Jay Mills smirked, realizing that humans and beasts could communicate. Looking at the majestic man before him, Jay Mills thought to himself that this was how it would be. The reason Hunter Sung was able to make the soldiers from the first gate his own was because he could communicate with them, and he guessed that they asked who the king was and obeyed that king. However, when Jay Mills questioned what would happen if he claimed to be the king, the majestic man apathetically responded that it looked like the true king was not there. Meanwhile, in China, Jinwoo asked the agent if there was no way to confirm what was going on in Canada, to which the agent replied for him to please hold on a moment. He then realized that if it was Adam White of the Hunter's Bureau, he could get answers. Jinwoo immediately called him, and Adam quickly responded. Without delay, Jinwoo asked about the situation with Canada's colossal gate. Jinwoo's eyes widened as he heard the distant screams of people through the call. With urgency, he asked where Adam was at that moment, and Adam responded that he was on site at Canada's colossal gate together with the other agents. This made Jinwoo alarmed, questioning why he was there, and Adam argued that they couldn't just sit and watch the situation in Canada. Many of them, including him, had been dispatched there. Thinking that they still didn't realize the scale of the enemy's army, Jinwoo asked Adam if there had been any changes to the gate. Adam denied it, saying that it seemed empty just like the other gates, and that it was very quiet on site. Just as Jinwoo felt a sense of relief, Adam suddenly interrupted, noticing something emerging from the gate. His shocked voice reported that a person was stepping out of the gate, leaving Jinwoo's eyes widened in shock. Jinwoo's desperate voice echoed through the phone, urging Adam to get away from there as fast as he could. Frozen in fear, as Jay Mills and the hunters standing before the gate were incinerated, their bodies reduced to ash in an instant by the overwhelming blast. Adam's trembling voice reported that the top-ranking hunters turned to ashes in an instant, which made Jin Woo urgently shout back through the phone, demanding that Adam flee while he still had the chance. As the civilians ran in chaos, Adam continued as he saw dragons from the sky. There were an endless number of dragons and beasts coming from above. All kinds of demonic beasts had gathered in one place, making Adam struggle to grasp how such a thing could be. Jinwoo pondered to himself that now that it had come to this, he could at least save Adam, if he could just control the shadow he had placed on him. Just then, an orc appeared behind Adam, grabbing his arm as the orc told him that they would be teleporting now. But Adam's expression shifted as the monarch appeared in front of them, questioning the shadow orc where they thought they were going. At that moment, Adam could only call out Jinwoo's name as the monarch slowly breathed in and forcefully launched a powerful blast toward the shadow and Adam. As the blast hit the pair, Jinwoo's connection to them was cut. Infuriated, he thought that he should have expected this, since they knew they were up against his shadow army, which became stronger the longer the fight lasted. Jinwoo realized that his opponent would minimize the number of battles by focusing their entire forces in a single location. So they opened 8 gates as if they would follow their original plan, but instead they sent their entire army to the gate farthest away from him, making Jinwoo acknowledge his terrible mistake. Even if he were to move over there immediately, he would end up in an all-out war, and now his plan to buy time had fallen apart, making him question if he could really do nothing about this. Back in Canada, the Monarch of Destruction smirked, remarking that the sound of a living person's heartbeat, the sound of their screams, and the sound of the destruction of creatures were resonating like music in his ears. He then informed the other monarch that they were done with preparations and ordered them to destroy everything, for that was the sole mission of their existence. Canada's destruction was played on a TV while David Brennan sat at his desk, remarking why they must have all died, the hunters, agents, and reporters on the scene. Thinking about hundreds of dragons along with oceans of giants, beasts, and insects behind them, he noted that this disaster cannot be contained by humans and remarked that they're all dead, and it's all over. Leaning back in his chair, he said that it's only a matter of time before they arrive in the U.S., and now he understood why Hunter Sung advised everyone to stay as far away from the gates as possible. And as he added that this world is done for, a voice from the corner agreed with him. This caught David's attention as a shadow slowly emerged from the dark. It slowly materialized into Jinwoo, who told David Brennan that he was paying him a sudden visit because he was looking for something. The runestones. He requested Brennan to hand over the runestones left behind by Kamish. Alarmed, David argued with Jinwoo, telling him that as he may already know, Kamish's runestones are managed by the Hunter's Bureau. But he suddenly paused, thinking to himself, what is he even saying? Why does the Hunter's Bureau even matter anymore? And those runestones mean nothing if the entire U.S. is about to be destroyed, let alone the Hunter's Bureau. Clutching his face in shame, he apologized to Jinwoo, thinking he was still drunk. As he rose, David told Jinwoo that he could hand over the runestones, but questioned why he needed them. Composed, Jinwoo said he was going to use them to launch a counterattack. A while later, David noted that Jinwoo had said that beings called rulers sent those demonic beasts here, and asked what are these rune stones that are inside the demonic beasts' bodies. Jinwoo explained to him that these are just gifts from the rulers to help humans hunt down demonic beasts more efficiently. What the rulers want is for there to be intense battles between the humans and the demonic beasts, which would cause mana to take root here. The sacrifice of humans is just a side effect rather than their ultimate goal. And when a demonic beast dies, their abilities are sealed in these rune stones. In short, rulers created rune stones to help humans hunt beasts. Hearing this, David asked if Jinwoo could really stop them with these, to which Jinwoo uncertainly responded that he'll have to try. Just then, Jinwoo looked at David and asked if he could request for one more favor. Inside a massive mansion, Norma Selner remarked that she never thought someone would come looking for her at a time like this. Norma Selner stuttered as she told Jinwoo that he was not the person she once knew. She noted that before darkness merely existed deep inside him, but now he had become darkness itself. However, Jinwoo calmly told her that he was still the same person she once knew, only now he had become one with the very darkness she had seen back then. Without wasting any time, Jinwoo asked if she truly had the ability to see the future. Then, looking her in the eyes, he asked if she could look into his own future. Taking a moment to gather herself, Norma Selner held Jinwoo's hands. "I understand," she whispered, closing her eyes as she began to concentrate. After a while, her tears began to fall. Clutching Jinwoo's hands tightly, she asked if he truly planned to take everything on by himself. Crying, she stuttered through her words, asking how a single human could carry so much alone, questioning if he truly intended to protect everything by sacrificing himself. Realizing that Norma Selner had seen his plan come true, Jinwoo bowed with gratitude, relieved that it meant he could at least get there. Suddenly, Norma cried out in concern, unable to hold back her fear. She warned him that no one would be able to remember, and that it would be a lonely fight he would face all by himself. Jinwoo slowly activated his shadow exchange, politely excusing himself for the sudden visit and the request, as Norma called out his name one last time. Moments later, he stood atop a radio tower, watching the setting sun and quietly appreciating the fleeting peace. Pulling out his phone, Jinwoo dialed a number and smiled softly as he introduced himself. On the other end came a trembling voice, filled with disbelief and emotion, questioning if it was truly him. Jinwoo gently confirmed, apologizing as he explained that he had been busy lately. The voice was revealed to be Hunter Cha, who assured him that it was okay, since she, too, had been very busy. Jinwoo agreed, noting that they hadn't seen each other for so long, both of them caught up in their duties. He promised that they would meet again soon, to which Hunter Cha warmly agreed. Calling out his name, Hunter Cha softly asked if he could promise her that he would come to see her. Jinwoo firmly affirmed, promising that he would go see her. Her heart warmed, and she embraced her phone as if to feel Jinwoo's presence. But suddenly, Choi Jong-in interrupted her sweet moment, informing her that they should get going now. The Asian Hunter Alliance, the Europe Hunter Alliance, the African Temporary Guild Union, and the Chinese Emergency Response Alliance. Hundreds of thousands of hunters are on their way to battle. Back in Canada, the Monarch of Destruction stands atop the corpses of the hunters, announcing that he is right there. Looking into the distance, he begins to emit a powerful surge of aura that pulsates toward the continent, across the neighbors, to South Korea, and finally to Jinwoo. Sensing Jinwoo, Antares remarks that he has already taken the lives of tens of millions of Jinwoo's kind, questioning him how much longer he plans on hiding. The Shadow Monarch responds to Antares that he will go meet him soon. Many days later, the Monarch stands on the top of a building, thinking that Jinwoo has been silent ever since, and questions just what he is trying to do. Well, since he is up against an army of 10 million, going into battle head-on would be nothing more than suicide. As a missile hits his face, Antares notes that Jinwoo might have run away to the bottom of the abyss. At that moment, a barrage of missiles is fired toward the Monarch, causing a massive explosion. Jets hover above the Monarch, reporting that they have successfully hit the target but cannot confirm with the naked eye, believing that it worked. Suddenly, a huge blast erupts from the location, surprising the soldiers as a dragon appears in front of them, glaring intensely and making their eyes widen in fear. As the dragon transforms, their jets look like mere insects from the sky. Remarking that he is bored, the Monarch breathes a powerful blast that quickly incinerates the jet fighters. In the castle that Baru had built, Jinwoo sat quietly on his throne, his aura radiating as he glanced over the word, "My liege." Knowing that it was written by Baru, he chuckled as he thanked him, making Baru emerge from the shadow, emotionally calling his liege. Kneeling on his right side, Belian also called his liege, telling Jinwoo that it was far too dangerous, while Igris also remarked that he shared Belian's thoughts. Appreciating their concern, Jinwoo told them that he knew they were worried about his safety, but there were times when he couldn't let danger prevent him from doing what needed to be done. He noted that Ashbourne, his predecessor, liked this part of Jinwoo, and he wondered what Ashbourne would have done if he were put in the same situation as Jinwoo. Thinking about Ashbourne, Belian proudly remarked that if it was him, he wouldn't have let anything stop him from doing what needed to be done. Realizing that he had said something biased, Belian looked at him, but Jinwoo gently smiled, shocking the Grand Marshal and making him think that Jinwoo resembled his previous master. He smiled gently as he acknowledged Jinwoo before the three of them put their fists down, vowing as they declared that they would stand beside their liege until the end. Jinwoo thanked them as he stood from his throne, and they began walking through the hallway. Checking his phone, Bellion asked his liege if he wasn't going to contact his family. But Jinwoo said no, explaining that if he were to hear his family's voices right now, clutching his phone as he recalled memories of his family, Jinwoo crushed his phone, noting that he didn't think he would be able to proceed. And with eyes full of determination, Jinwoo glared into the distance, muttering to his shadow, "Let's go!" In the ruins of Canada, a massive dragon pursued a jet through the sky, its jaws snapping shut with a thunderous chomp that caused the aircraft to explode in midair, but the pilot managed to eject himself just in time. As the jet crashed into a nearby building, the man safely glided down with his parachute. Landing on the ground, he quickly hid around the corner, peeking as a soldier's strung-up foot was lifted from the ground, and saw the army of demonic beasts and monsters hunting down humans. Sweat dripped down his head as he watched the scene. Suddenly, a gooey liquid dropped onto his shoulder, making him glance up, only for his eyes to widen in shock at the monster lurking right behind him. It quickly lunged forward, shattering the ground with its force, but the man narrowly managed to dodge out of the way. Catching a glimpse of the fallen soldier's rifle, he quickly snatched it up and relentlessly fired at the beast as it charged toward him. Suddenly, his rifle clicked empty, making him curse under his breath, accepting his fate as the monster's wide mouth loomed over him. Closing his eyes, he braced for impact. However, moments have passed, but nothing came. This makes him slowly open his eyes, only to see the beast sliced clean in half. His eyes widened in disbelief as he saw Jinwoo standing before him, calmly ordering him to evacuate. At that moment, the army of demonic beasts leapt onto Jinwoo, making the soldier cry out for him in concern. However, Jinwoo calmly stood at ease and raised his dagger toward the beasts, unleashing his ruler's authority. Locking in, he slashed his dagger through the air, cutting down the demonic beasts before him with blinding speed, killing them with deadly precision. Walking past the corpses of the demonic beasts he had slaughtered, Jinwoo remarked that this was the first step of the war, and as he declared that he would start with them, Jinwoo muttered, "Arise." The fallen demonic beasts then rose once more, no longer his enemies but reborn as his newly claimed shadow soldiers. Sensing Jinwoo's presence, the Monarch of Destruction noted that the Shadow Monarch had appeared on the Eastern Front. Yogamont wondered why they didn't bring all their forces to launch an immediate attack, while Tarnak observed that he could not sense the army of the dead within Jinwoo's shadow army, pointing out that Jinwoo must have been spreading his forces out to cover a wider area. Composedly standing, Antares pondered that Jinwoo must be trying to absorb their forces into his by going alone into the battlefield, seemingly buying time by avoiding a direct battle. This made Antares wonder what exactly the Shadow Monarch was aiming for. Meanwhile, on TV, a broadcaster reported that when contact was lost with the hunters sent to subdue the demonic beasts, the U.S. government quickly dispatched the military to buy time for the civilians to evacuate. As Chairman Woo Jin-chul listened intently to the news, he thought about the disaster unfolding on the other side of the earth. After Canada, even the U.S., which possessed the greatest military power in the world, was being helplessly destroyed by the monsters. The only thing humanity could do now was pray for a miracle, but what kind of miracle could possibly stop them? With a shaky voice, Jin-chul asked for a miracle, begging the heavens not to abandon them. Back on the battlefield, hundreds of new shadow soldiers had joined the army. Just like a huge tsunami engulfing everything, the darkness of the shadows slowly started staining the battlefield. The demonic beasts' bodies were brutally severed as Jinwoo dashed forward like an unstoppable force, mutilating them with blinding speed. Halting after his attack, Jinwoo stared upward as a massive giant swung its club in his path, the impact shaking the ground and destroying numerous buildings. Jinwoo dodged and blitzed forward, slashing the giant's ankle, and as he passed through, the foot was cleanly severed with deadly precision. The giant lost its balance and toppled to the ground, while Jinwoo's newly summoned shadows surged forward, clamping down on it with their jaws. As the new shadows chomped down on the giant, Jinwoo composedly stood there, then glanced up, seeing the skies filled with a massive army of dragons. Jinwoo wondered if the army of doom had started moving, since he couldn't sense the Dragon King, and he didn't think they were planning to make a move just yet. But there was nothing to be disappointed about, since there was still plenty of time left. And if he hesitated to make a move, Jinwoo just needed to provide a reason for him to do so. Coldly muttered, "Arise!" Suddenly, the shadow giant's arms surged into the sky, grabbing the dragons above. However, a nearby dragon unleashed its breath, releasing a powerful blast that quickly incinerated the shadow giant. The dragon roared in defiance, questioning Jinwoo's audacity to oppose the great Dragon King with mere puppets made of mana, declaring that as a servant of the Dragon King, he would destroy him. However, Jinwoo was already behind him, riding his mount, mocking the dragon, and without pause, leapt off, his abs visible as he sliced through the dragon's neck with ease, silencing its defiance. Sensing his army being annihilated, Antares noted that the Shadow Monarch was growing stronger. He declared that they would attack him, commanding the Monarch of Transfiguration to stay and wait for the Shadow Army's ambush, which he acknowledged. Antares then muttered that he wouldn't let Jinwoo go as he summoned countless red gates into the sky. Meanwhile, in the U.S., soldiers relentlessly fired at the demonic creatures, urging each other to shoot without worrying about conserving ammo, aiming to at least slow them by targeting their legs or arms while waiting for the hunter's backup. A grasshopper crushed a soldier's head as it munched down, while a muscular ogre lunged toward them. Suddenly, an arm surged forth, striking the ogre in the face and sending it flying back through the other demonic creatures. Thomas Andre grinned and said that he had seen all of them in dungeons before. As the soldiers cheered for the scavenger guild and his arrival, he clenched his fist and added that there were a lot of them, but they weren't all that tough. He then glanced over at the figure who remarked that Thomas Andre was the human from last time, a weak vessel who had nearly died at the hands of the beast monarch. Introducing himself as the king of the monstrous humanoids, the monarch of Iron Body, he tells Thomas that he surely must realize that the monarch could take his life in a blink of an eye, questioning whether Thomas still planned on getting in his way. Facing the monarch, Thomas gave him an attitude, remarking that he was not very fond of confusing things as his shadows spread across the battlefield. As Belian slowly materialized, he remarked that it had been a while, monarch of steel body, and then the shadow army emerged, making Tarnak wonder why the Shadow Army was there, noting that they must have been hiding within that human shadow while concealing their presence.